I'm going to make a recommendation to Dave. Listen, I after the last one, I'm sure that Chaz is not going to want to sit there and go, okay, beep, okay, beep, okay, beep.
You think they'd have an AI tool that would just go out and look for and just wherever you hear a curse word, substitute a beep.
Yeah,
What are you
really.
guys? Are
Oh,
you
there he
guys
said
beeping
something
me
again.
out?
Oh shit! Oh no, we can't say that.
Are you beeping me out?
Yeah.
Come on! I didn't know that there was censors. This is a bar for God's sakes.
That's right. That's right.
It was only every other word on a couple of those statements.
Only every other word.
Yeah. All right. So you ready?
Yeah.
You want to introduce us there? You want to introduce us there, Mule?
Oh, okay. I can do that.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to The Outliers Inn, produced by the Operational Excellence Society and sponsored by Zonatech Consulting Group International, with your hosts, Joseph Paris and David Schneider.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Outliers Inn. This is the one where we pressed the freaking record button. 2 weeks ago, we didn't do that. And to join in this festivity is my co-host, JP. JP, you did press the button this time, right?
In fact, I did. And all of our guests reminded me to press the record button. It was amazing. I mean, we went through 45 minutes, 50 minutes of talking.
It was a great conversation. It was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah,
nobody
noticed it until at the very end when I was going to turn it off. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't turn it on. And so I'm expecting all of our guests to razz me mercilessly one at a time as they come along. But yeah, and it's deservedly so. By the way, it's not my first time I've done that. I actually did that once in a State of Readiness podcast that I was recording, and I got to the end. I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?"
Yeah. I did it. I have trained my robotics students because we've been doing a lot of Zoom meeting based design meetings. Because the past week there were no meetings, no physical meetings because of snow and all the rest of the school unavailability, things like that. So what our habit is we're supposed to be recording these engineering calls so you can go back and yes, this is what we decided, this is what we discussed. And yeah, so I've got them trained. Mr. Schneider, did you press record? It's part of our logic now based off of what happened in our recording.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's like such a rookie move. I mean, we've got 70 something, 80 something podcasts under our belt, Outliers in podcasts, and it's just like whatever, man. Yeah, whatever. So
well, yours, mine, it's like, hey, it just proves we're human. We F up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it to err as human? To really fuck up requires a computer? Is that what it is? Or the government?
That's absolutely both.
Yeah.
Or to really make it colossal, mix the government with a computer.
Oh man, God forbid. God forbid. So today's theme is the same as last time's theme.
Predictions
for 2024. Do you have any predictions right off the bat there, Mule?
Well, what I'm predicting is that my robotics team is going to dominate the Chesapeake District. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Their first couple of weeks of operations been set back because of weather and snow. But what they've learned how to do because of COVID is 90% of the main systems designs are done. It's just now take the design and make it in, use material and make it real. Yeah. And so that's fun. The real prediction that I have for this year is that there's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to be scratching their heads going, I don't know what's happening tax-wise. I can't make decisions what to do, because of both the political environment, but then also the regulatory environment. And one of them that's that's hidden, and you're seeing a lot of noise about it, is the deduction for research and development.
Yeah, I
And
saw that.
I used that R&D deduction in my business because a big chunk of what I do is I'm developing some new grippers and things like that. I do that kind of work. And if I can't deduct it, then it leaves a lot more tax liability out there. And I won't see the benefit of this work for probably 2-3 years. But now,
what do you,
under
are you,
the current rules, you have to depreciate those expenses out over a 5-year period of time. Where
so you have to
the rule
capitalize it
before-
and then depreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And before, it was just a straight, no, it was a straight write-off. So it's, there's noise to put that in place. Well, I thought I was an outlier with that. And I found that I've got a lot of clients who use that R&D legitimately, just as I am. I've got legitimate research projects that I'm doing. And now that has slowed down the investment in research.
Well, I mean, why can't you just not claim as much into the research side? You know, I mean, just be a little bit more assertive in what you consider research and what you don't consider research.
There's ways that you can play that, but the cleanest way is this ends up being the impact is how much you pay in taxes.
Right.
This current year. And there's companies that, especially software companies that were still in heavy development. So they don't have a marketable product yet, or they do, but they're doing a lot of research and a lot of development into that improvement. They can't write it off the same year that they spent that payroll. They're now having to deduct that over 5 years. And it changed what their tax bill was. It was like, here's what the rule was. And then bing, now the rules changed.
Yeah, but you
had folks that weren't prepared. Folks that weren't prepared. I looked at it, saw what was happening, was aware of it, did my little bit of politicking, writing to my district congressman and to the senator, but mainly it was the district congressman to try to get it across that there's an awful lot of small companies that are using that deduction. That's a big deal.
Right.
And
now
I think that it's overlooked how big of a deal it is.
Yeah, it depends on where you are in the spectrum, right? Because if you're a big company, you want to show profitability to boost up your share price, right? So the more they're able to amortize, the less they expense, the more their profit is.
The guys who are affected by this are LLCs that are S corps.
Right.
Which, there's a lot of them, and they're all, there's several of my clients that are also LLCs. They're privately held, closely held, and they were spending quite a bit in research and development to improve and test new materials for their equipment solution. And it changed what their tech structure was. And for two of them, it caught them a little bit by surprise. Even though I was talking to them about it, they were caught a little bit flat-foot. And that it is a big issue that affects a lot of small businesses. And so that's one area that I think that, I have a prediction that it's one example of a lot of this noise that's, especially with the cohorts of, I would say, LLCs that are under 10 or 15 million in annual revenue. Those companies are really having some issues with the unknown changes, or I don't know if this is changing or not issue. This one that I'm explaining to you, everybody was talking about coming up with no, we're going to hold off doing that. We're going to hold off doing that. We're going to hold off doing that. And then it never happened. And so a lot of these people were going, yeah, I'm aware of it, but politically, they won't let it happen, but they did. Politicians let it happen. So it's those things that I see a lot more surprises coming down the way.
So from our last session, my prediction that was the Buffalo Bills were going to go all the way. That didn't quite materialize, did it? So I was
No.
wrong on that one.
Your ironic part is it was wide right.
Yeah. Oh my God. You know what? I asked Dan, you probably saw it in the group chat there, Don. I asked Dan if we should send a wellness check to Mark.
Oh, I know it. That was bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
So, hey, Don, how are you? I know that, you're sitting knee how.
Well, I'm just I don't seem to be suffering too bad in jet lag. I've been telling everybody this is like a vacation for me, because I'm going down, I'm analyzing the equipment and stuff like that. I'm talking about, oh my God, I'm scheduling appointments with like 2 other vendors. So I've got appointments with like 7 vendors out here. We got some interesting stuff going on, but yeah, I mean, it's been in actuality, it's relaxing. It's nice because I don't have any pressure on me. And if there's something going on bad back home, there's nothing I can do anyway. So why worry about it?
Yeah.
You know?
What's your prediction for this year, man?
Let's see. Taylor Swift is going to put on 40 pounds. Travis Kelce is going to break his leg in the AFC Championship game. And the Super Bowl is going to come down to a tie between the San Francisco 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens.
But it can't end in a tie.
Why?
Well, because it's Super Bowl. Somebody's got to win.
No, they don't.
No.
It's my prediction. Leave me alone.
Oh, okay.
There you go. It's his prediction.
Okay.
There you go. You asked for what my prediction was. I told you.
Hey, I didn't tell you that I wouldn't give you shit about it, did I?
No, I know. Yeah, right.
Oh, man. But Don, you got to ask him a question. Did he turn this thing on?
Turn what thing off?
The record button.
Oh, I don't know. Can you turn this off, Joe?
I don't know. Well, we'll have to figure out at the end when I turn it off if it's on or not. So yeah.
Well, I made a prediction this morning that Joe was going to turn on the record button.
That's good. That's good.
That's good. I saw that video you sent of Uncle Fester dancing.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Oh my God!
I mean, I showed that one to Mark, and Mark's like, "Oh my God, white man dancing."
That's exactly what I thought. You know what I mean? In fact, if we didn't call him Uncle Fester as his nickname, he actually looked like Lurch dancing. You know,
Hey,
but
did you check out the link on that hotel?
Yeah, I finally did. Yeah, I couldn't do it because it doesn't have a security certificate on it. So
Yeah.
my antivirus thing was going like bananas.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually pretty nice. It really is. I mean, and it's, for a Chinese hotel, it's actually pretty decent. It is kind of expensive for a Chinese hotel. It's $80 a night.
Ooh.
But it is really it's nice. Now the other problem is the other night when I was sitting here and I'm going, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not really hungry. I'm just going to go down and sit in the lounge and have a couple beers. So I had like 3 beers sitting down there, and and they're Qingdao, and he hands me the bill. It's like $6 a beer. I'm like, what? Okay, you don't pay $6 a beer over in China. Okay,
right.
That just doesn't happen. And I says, well, that's enough of that. And there's this, they got a little hole in the wall convenience store right across the street. I go over there. I pick up 3 20-ounce Qingdao beers for like 80 cents a piece. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
So what'd you do? Bring them back into the lounge and drink them there?
Oh, you have no idea how tempted I was to do that.
Yeah, that's too funny.
So,
now you're there. Your primary mission is to commission a machine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We were going over that. We actually got a little bit of a jump on it. We were able to go in on They brought me in on Saturday, and we actually did some stuff on there. We did some prelims there. We're still waiting for parts. Parts are tied up in customs, so we can't really do a qualification run on it because we don't have enough parts. So we're going through and doing some of the training and stuff like that, and I'm going over some of the software on it, looking at the mechanicals, making sure that stuff's all tidied up and stuff. And there's always issues with some of this stuff, but and a lot of it is just some of the verbiage that they have in there. It doesn't align with the U.S. market. Some of the text needs to be lined up in the boxes and stuff like. It's just stupid little things.
Well,
But,
anybody that's done an IKEA flat pack knows all about that.
What's that?
Anybody that's ever opened up an IKEA flat pack knows
Well,
all
yeah,
about the
of course.
instructions.
Yes.
So,
But and these guys, the nice thing about this vendor is that they're anything that I tell them, they're writing this stuff down. They're taking pictures, and they're receptive to it. And it's like that's how I was telling them. I says if you want to do this, this is what you need to do, and they're actually listening to me. So it's actually quite nice.
well, that's one person anyway.
Well, yeah, and this other vendor, oh my God. I went in and I looked at their equipment, and I was sitting there looking at it, and I'm going, holy crap. I says, this stuff is like, I mean, you've seen some of the machines at my place, and they're okay. They are ancient history and stuff like that. And they've got all sorts of pneumatics and valves and, and air cylinders and stuff. They've got a fully automatic machine down there that's all done with servo drives. This thing, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh my God, I thought I was going to die and go to heaven. This thing is, and everything is driven with cams. I was, holy crap. I said, this is I want to see it run. But yeah.
Speaking of cams, yeah, my oldest son, Jonathan, he's got a Land Rover Defender 110, like one of the out of Africas.
Yeah.
And he was driving back from Prague with his girlfriend, got to Pilsen, and his engine played a knock-knock joke on him.
Oh, no.
The result of the knock-knock
Knock,
joke
knock,
was
knock.
that a rod came through his through his oil pan. And,
Get out. Is this the one
Rod.
he had? Is this the one he had when we were over there?
Yeah, the blue one. Yeah. So
He's still, how many miles are on that thing?
well, it's not going to be any more because it's dead.
Well,
But he's taking that all over the place.
Motor, how many miles were on the vehicle?
I couldn't tell. I would guess that there's almost 400,000 kilometers on it.
Okay.
But he's going to get a replacement motor. He's a member of ADAC, which is sort of like the AAA for Germany. And believe it or not, they will tow his vehicle all the way back from Pilsen to Frankfurt, which is a long ways. I mean, we're talking probably a 7-hour drive. Okay. And they'll actually bring it on all the way back to Frankfurt because the repair will take more than 3 days. And they had some discussion as to whether or not the repair would take more than 3 days. And it's like finding an engine is going to take more than 3 days, not to mention putting it in.
Just remember one thing. Hit the record button.
Thanks. Hit the record button. Yeah. So yeah, knock joke. So why don't we invite Stefan to join us there? Stefan, you still there?
Okay,
I am
ladies
still
and gentlemen, I am going to clock out. It has been real. I must leave.
All right.
Have fun,
Don.
I
Don.
need to go to sleep.
We'll see you next week, Don.
Betty,
Okay,
bye.
sounds good, Joe. Thanks a lot.
Take
Talk
care.
to you.
Yep. Take care. So Stefan, how you doing there, buddy?
I'm very fine. What about yourself?
Excellent. I'm excellent. And I was thinking about you when Jonathan was reporting his malady with this vehicle, because you had a similar thing coming from vacation.
I got a terrible one. It was not a Land Rover, it was a Ford. And I got the clutch that let me down in the middle of nowhere. So I have to say that the beauty of the middle of nowhere is you do find honest craftsmen that are happy to do a very good job for a very decent price. So that's the beauty of being in the middle of nowhere. So some one of those person came with a truck to tow away my car, which obviously didn't want to move anymore. Took my car away for something like 3 weeks because, it was the holiday period for everyone, including the garage, and then fixed my car. And then I had to go back in the middle of nowhere to pick up my car because obviously you cannot, that's the difficulty business. And then, just as and I think I never told the story. Then one day I was supposed to take a flight to Venice for the marathon on Venice. It was at the end of October, and it was an epic journey because for whichever reason, and I learned that at the end, is my car was losing cooling fluid, the very same car that let me down in the middle of the summer, and then I was pushing the accelerator, but the car was not going faster than 60 km/h, which on the motorway is not very safe. And then I was trying to fix it and say, what's going on here? Then after I lost the heating system within the car, so it was really cold. And I said, the car is really dying here. And then I realized that I lost the needle of the temperature of the engine. And then I said, oh, does look like the cooling system is not working here. Then I stopped in the one of those services on the side. I was robbed from the person because they sold me the most expensive cooling liquid fluid that you can find on things. But of course, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't blame the guy. I was still happy to have some. Filled the car, and then it went fine. But there was a leak in the cooling system. Then it was terrible. Then at the end of the day, I decided to stop the expenses and managed to sell the car for a few €100. And then I bought exactly the same one, but with many less kilometers because it has 6,000 and whatever, way too many kilometers on the clock. But I was very happy at the car, and then I realized I'll start hunting for cars, and then I realized, you know what? Don't waste your time. Just buy the same one, newer. No, it's still the same version. I went exactly for the almost exactly the same car, but then with significantly less mileage on the engine, and then it's running fine.
Now, didn't you feel the clutch slipping before it gave way? I mean, usually clutches just don't stop working.
I got gaps in acceleration, when the clutch broke away, but I didn't realize it was the clutch until it was too late. Being a genius in mechanics, I realized the same.
Right.
I was not sure if it was the turbo or whatever. No, it was the clutch, but then I learned it the hard way,
So what predictions do you have for 2024?
The first one is, I'm sure we will remind you in the next recording to hit the freaking record button. we can do that. And then, John, I have to remember what I predicted last time, which I think is a few things will still happen in development of artificial intelligence. And also what I am really looking forward is this quantum computers, That is, is it going to happen this year? I don't think so. I don't know. But then development in that area will be nice because then you combine that with ChatGPT, and then, where are we going to stop? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is going to be very efficient, that's for sure. Then if it's correct, we don't know, but at least it will be efficient.
It's funny about that you bring up AI, because I've been looking at, a lot of people are using AI generated graphics, pictures, with their social media posts, especially on LinkedIn. And they all have the same feel. It's like, every artist has got its like signature brush strokes or whatever it is. I was just in Vienna and they had a big display on Klimt, you know what I mean? And Gustav Klimt had a very specific way of painting. And they had some Monets there also, these AI generated images are sort of like a little cartoonish, but at the same time a blend of cartoons and Soviet Union. They're just kind of cold,
a little plastic.
Yeah, plastic. That's a good way.
Yeah,
Good way of
a little
saying it.
plastic.
And then that there is a theory, a conspiracy theory, that AI is in fact some Russian people that are creating image for you. You know, we are not far from that.
A room full
Yeah.
of monkeys, except they
Yeah.
aren't monkeys.
Yeah, a little Russian sweatshop. Oh
Yeah.
no, Stefan wants a graphic that looks like this. Oh, let's put together something real quick and get it to him in 30 seconds or less.
No,
Yeah.
but I see your point with each artist having their own brush and all those things, but I think we are still, sadly, we are still in the infancy of AI, so we are already seeing some, yeah, of course, it's not perfect, but, you know, let's give it 10 years and then we may be surprised by it, because then you may say, I would like to have a picture that looks like this, you know, in the same line of this one or in the line of that one, and then it will be done.
Yeah,
And then,
you could. That's a great point, because you could actually do that with the text, like, you know, in the style
In
of
the style.
Hemingway. Give me, yeah. So it's like I could say in the style of Monet. We should try that in the style of Monet or Picasso or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, give me this.
Yeah, or you know, you just scan a picture and say you would like your picture to look, you know, in the style of this one, which is no depicting whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Huh, I wonder if that would work.
Yeah. I think it will. It will just take time. It will.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy.
once again, just a derivative of the original.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. I'm still not. You know, they will do. It's like the little game. You know, when you're a kid, people play with this little game. When you have, you know, a policeman, a fireman, a farmer, and then you can split the head, the body, and the legs, and then you can make, you know, a sort of a fireman, policeman slash farmer.
Yep.
It's a bit what AI is doing, and then of course, when you multiply the number of combinations, this become creative. Although it's still within the set of knowledge. But then there's so many combinations, and at one point you say, yeah, this looks a bit different.
Yeah.
Well, what point is, do we, no matter whether it's AI or human, is it creative? No longer creative, and it's always just a derivative of something else, and you could trace back the derivatives. And that's, I think, you know, to me, that would be the influence that the art has on the AI or the human that's creating their art. You know, what influenced them? What did they see? So it's to me, it's fascinating. Think about it from that. How did that learning loop happen? How does that learning loop work?
But wouldn't you say that everything's a derivative of everything else? Like,
Yeah.
you know, a derivative of the cave paintings in France.
Could be.
You know, for instance.
I mean, I think that there's some artisans out there that, you know, would I argue that Michelangelo was derivative, or was Da Vinci derivative of, you know, cave paintings? I don't know. There has been periods of time where people truly did something that hadn't been done before.
Like the
But
pyramids
they
in
were
Egypt.
influenced. They were influenced, but they took that influence and created something that was unique. And is AI capable of doing that? Having this inspiration to do, well, all my algorithms say do this, but no, I'm going to go do this instead. Which sometimes is the heart of creativity. I don't know. You know, there's some other people here that I think could have a lot of fun with that part of the conversation.
Yeah. So
like
why don't we
Donna and
invite
Pete.
Donna? That'll be you, Donna.
Sure. So, so many ways to go on all of that. So, I think that steal like an artist is a quote for a reason. And I think that there's a difference between modeling and copying, right? And I think that that's important. And using your Da Vinci and your Michelangelo examples, they could be copying people that have been long dead that we would never know because they didn't get famous, right? Like
Yep.
they were inspired by people we never heard of, right? So, you know, I think that everybody is inspired by someone. Of course, what we were talking about in like the look is one of the reasons that there's class action lawsuits against some of these AI specialists. And I'm a big fan of AI. I mean, I've been asked multiple times if I'm an optimist or a pessimist when it comes to AI. And I always say I'm a realist. Like, it's here, get used to it. You know, you've got to find a way to to work within that ecosystem. And my prediction is really that 2024 is the year of AI, but that, and I think I did say this with no record button, but
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
but what I've seen is, while this is the year of AI, the real year of AI was over a decade ago. Corporations have been using this for eons, right? It's just that marketers and regular people got a hold of it now. They've democratized it. So now we can all use it. And that's why you're seeing it all over social media. That's why you're seeing, you have to make your toast with AI. I can show you how. Anything has an AI twist on it these days. And the interesting thing is there really is an AI twist on just about everything. I'm going to have to maybe give a whirl to those images in the image of, or, blah, blah, blah. I'll have to give that a whirl, but I see what you're saying about like some of the looks and how they're somewhat generalized. I kind of relate that, if we can remember when like high definition TVs first came out and everybody disliked them because they were like, it's so real, it looks fake.
It's so crisp. Yeah.
Like they couldn't really get used to it. I think AI is kind of in that same vein, but that it'll get better over time, to Stefan's point. I think that now that more people have a hold of it and it's not just the corporate edicts, I think that there's tons of room for improvement. It's the difference between having, a few people doing optimization and having a world of people looking at optimization. So I think that there's a lot to kind of be looked at. The one thing that I do want to add is one of my predictions that I hope comes true is that Charles will go, oh, he doesn't have a recording. Damn, he can't even do this. So, but what would have been classic was Joe's realization, the look on his face when he realized he hadn't hit the record button. If I could have gotten a screenshot of that, that would have been classic. But so I guess I can't predict that Charles can grab that because there's nothing to grab, but
Yeah.
I should have hit a screenshot on that
Well,
one.
My
I think
problem with sorry, go on, Stefan.
I think we should ask AI to generate a picture of JP when they realize he forgot video clicking. See what it looks like. Sorry.
Oh shit.
I'll send you a screenshot of me on this podcast here, Don, and see if you can work some magic in AI. My problem with AI is, we haven't, before we master AI, we haven't mastered regular I. And, that's kind of, worrisome. I mean, I think it was Ricky Gervaisi that said that stop asking the average person because the average person's stupid. And you got to wonder if, AI, who's to judge whether or not it's a positive influencer or a negative influencer if we haven't have a body of people that are intelligent in the first place.
Well, I get that. I'm certainly not going to wait for people to smarten up because I just don't have that kind of time, right? And I mean, you could say that of any piece of technology. I mean, when scanners came out and they were democratized, shall we say, and the prices came down and everybody and their brother was getting a scanner back when they were separate devices and not your multifunction printers, people were scanning body parts. I mean, like you can't just like you can't think all the way through for just how creative and stupid people can be.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, but it's kind of the 80-20 rule. Like hopefully that'll be not a huge percentage. And, and the cream that will rise to the top are the people that are optimizing it and using it intelligently.
Right. Well, as they say, you try to idiot-proof something, and there's always going to be a new and improved idiot that comes along.
The Mark III Fool comes
That's
along.
right.
You make it foolproof, and the next version of the Fool comes along.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Peter is joining us today. He's a chronic registrant to the Outliers.
I am. I'm very good at that.
Yeah, but hardly ever shows up. However, I coerced him into showing up today and gave him the opportunity to listen to the goings on before we call upon his predictions.
Yeah, it's interesting. First off, I thought I was in an episode with Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers, but listening to cars that have done 200 and something thousand kilometers and have no chance of working. I also think, so predictions, AI, well, there'll probably be some sort of idiot-proof AI that stops people forgetting to put on the recording button. I would have thought that's an obvious thing to get going for this year. I think that actually, and interesting on the picture front. So they already have AI trying to write poems like Shakespeare and doing all those sort of things. So it's working on the literary front, and it's pretty dreadful right now. So we'll see if it improves at all, and we'll see what happens to pictures. But going back to Da Vinci or to all those guys, well, they were working to a kind of pre-agreed stereotype, right? So Jesus was a white guy from Italy. The angels all look like white guys from Italy or girls, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not any difference. I think, was it Douglas Adams said that people who try to make things idiot-proof underestimate the genius of idiots, right? And that's that I think is always going to be the case. So that'll be the big thing. The thing that is slightly worrisome, I think, is that we have you democratize AI at the danger of taking away democracy. I think there's an interesting year ahead of us with major elections in UK, in India, in the US, in a whole load of places like that. And we're already seeing some interesting things going on. I think in the UK, we might get to the point where something rather right-wing takes away the current right-wing and makes for an interesting new government. We'll see what happens there. And we'll see what happens your side of the water with a race to become Republican nominee with very few people in it now, right?
Right. There's just
Two
Nikki
left.
Haley.
Yeah.
There's just
Nikki Haley
two standing.
Yeah.
Already.
Already.
After one caucus. So that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
We'll see when we go to the polls in the UK. That will be probably determined by the least worst result for the current government they think they can get away with, which is what being in power allows you to do. But we'll see when that happens. It's anywhere between now and next January. And in India, I don't think we'll see any difference there, which is slightly worrisome, I think, in terms of what's happening to what is supposed to be the biggest democracy in the world, but is not very democratic these days. So interesting. The other interesting thing, I think, is that we might just see somebody land on the moon who can actually take a freaking picture, right? Because this year so far, we've had two pretty epic failures. The Japanese have apparently landed on there, but they're pointed in the wrong direction. So the sun's not charging their batteries and they can't see anything. And the other one that left with the American version that left earlier this year has failed, didn't it? So we'll see. Maybe something will land on there this year. Although I hear there's some delays in the US.
Yeah, the Russian one
right?
cratered into the moon, so to speak. didn't have deployed
cratered
properly.
into a crater.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's interesting what's going on with space exploration. You talk about the democratization of technology.
Yeah, fascinating.
I mean, Musk is putting up or SpaceX is putting up a rocket every couple of days now. It's so routine that it's not even televised anymore, except the big ones that tend to blow up.
There was one this past week. sending
Yes, there
crew
was.
up
Yeah.
to the ISS. So
Yeah, and you don't hear about the ones that are sending up hundreds of Starlink satellites every week. So it's pretty amazing. And then when I see things like the Minuteman III missiles being woefully over budget, I'm thinking, why don't you just subcontract it out to somebody that knows how to make rockets for cheap?
well, what's interesting, what made that go over budget was the infrastructure of the launch systems. It has nothing to do with the rocket itself, other than they didn't design the rocket to work with the existing launch system.
Of course not.
And so the retrofit to fix these silos is they grossly underestimated what that cost would be. But partially that was because when they figured it out, it was about 8 years ago. And what's happened to labor costs since then, inflation. So it's interesting to watch. Yeah. Government doesn't move very fast.
Right.
And budget overruns are often because, well, the budget was established 5 years ago and we never adjusted for inflation that we created ourselves, by the way. Oh, thank you very much. What I find is also fascinating with all these space launches and everything else, the cost of technology keeps going down. And it used to be, if you really wanted to do a naval blockade, you had to have a freaking navy to do a naval blockade. But what have the Houthis done with not low tech, high tech, but cheap high tech supplied by some of their friends in Iran, but they've effectively created a naval blockade. Think about that for a minute. That the cost of sending stuff into space has gotten to the point where there's a lot of people doing it. A lot of businesses doing it because it makes money.
Right.
And then you have countries that are able to create weaponry at such a low cost that they can export it more efficiently than the U.S. can, because the U.S. used to be the #1 arms supplier behind the Soviet Union. But, if you think about the cost of the technology, well, now smaller groups, you don't have to be a sovereign state with a navy to create a naval blockade. And that's never been done before. To me, that's something else that you want a prediction. That's not a 2024 prediction. That's a much longer range prediction. What the heck is going to happen with that?
I guess there's some unique circumstance there, though, Mule. I mean, it's not a particularly wide piece of water, so in terms of an ability to do that, you can, that's a containable area, right? You couldn't imagine somebody doing that in the Pacific, for instance, at least not yet.
No, obviously they have some advantages because of the terrain and the body of water and the weaponry systems that they have. But think about it. They aren't that's not a sovereign nation doing that.
No.
Getting back to arts, bringing it back into arts, because
not the art of warfare.
Yeah. I was, as I mentioned, I was in Vienna, and I was at this museum, and they had some other displays, and some of this work was, I didn't get it. Okay, I mean, I didn't appreciate it. It looked like somebody was just flinging poo on canvas. All right. It was just and I was thinking about Donna and I have a mutual friend, Laura, who's an artist. And what I came up with is that in order to be a famous artist, what you got to do is you got to make friends with some art snob that's filthy rich.
Yeah.
And willing to pay stupid money for paintings. Okay. And next thing you know, because they're in the art world, because that one filthy rich person overpaid for that one piece of art, everybody else says, oh, it's got to be a beautiful piece of art. And next thing you know, you're famous and you're on the circuit and you're wealthy. So for every one of the Lauras in the world, who's quite accomplished, I like her work, by the way, you have these people that are like Hunter Biden.
Well, I guess
Who's got no native
Oh.
talents to speak of, but
but a name.
but he's got a name and he's got rich
But
friends.
Emperor's new clothes, right?
Right. Yes.
And all you need is enough nutcases to spend enough money. Then, then those things work. And I've been like that, I'm afraid.
Yeah. You've been like that? You've been filthy rich and spending stupid money on paintings?
No, I was being Scottish there. I said it's I've been.
Zing.
By the way, Stefan, how the heck do you run a marathon in Venice without getting very wet or drowning? That's my number one question from your piece, because I'm sure that's what you said. So I have a picture of you in my head in an aqualung trying to run through the streets of Venice.
There was a bit of water because the time of the year when how would you say that, the tide was high, and then but you get that wherever you are in Venice. But to remove that picture that me swimming a marathon, they build a bridge over the Grand Canal just for the marathonian to cross safely without having any water.
That's cheating.
No, it's not. It's not. They build on purpose a magnificent bridge over the Grand Canal in Venice, so you can end up in the, you end up on the Saint Marco places. So you run in the middle of it. So it's very nice. But yes, so that's the way.
Okay.
It's not question, but they find a way. They have some engineering, and every year they build that bridge, so they're used to it. And yes, I didn't fall into the water, so I managed to wait. Dry feet at the end of the marathon.
So, if I recall right, in our last session, which I didn't record because I didn't hit the record button.
Yes.
We got to a point about predictions of the election and
No, we
in the
didn't.
United States, and
No, we didn't.
everybody wanted to drive right by that.
That's right.
Okay, they wanted to. So I'm going to wade into it. I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to say that Trump, as it stands right now, Donald Trump is going to win. Okay.
Okay. You put that marker down.
Put that marker down. He's got way too much momentum, and the more he's persecuted, the more energy he seems to attract. And I got to tell you, if Kamala Harris is Biden's running mate again, not a fan of Biden. But I go to sleep at night, every night. I pray for his good health, because the thought of having her as the president of the United States scares the living shit out of me.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say that.
Yeah. And so, I have a very, I'm not going to call it realistic, a little bit of a Machiavellian viewpoint of this. And that is that, we get the government we deserve.
Yeah.
That's it.
And we, the people, are being stupid.
Okay.
And, I'm hoping that there is enough people that are out there that go, you know what, I understand this is what the game is, and somehow we got to stop playing the fucking game.
I think George Carlin, this great sage that he was, had it right. He said he's not going to vote. And of course, the rebuttal to that is that if you don't vote, you have no say. You're part of the problem. And he says, no, I didn't vote for the people that you don't like, that screw up the country. Therefore, I did not participate in selecting the people you put into office. So I have every right to complain, and you have no right to complain.
Exactly. It's not that I don't vote, but it's like, there are pros and cons to every single candidate that you run into.
Of course.
You roll the dice, and then you live with your own life, and you do what you can to make the changes. That's why I don't pay attention to what's happening at the, at the federal level unless it's something that is small business related. And that's where I spend my energy to try to make change happen, is at the small business level, through a couple of organizations that they allow us to be able to go in and have conversations with the elected officials. And so I'll do a little bit of lobbying that way and represent small businesses, because I am a small business. And to me, that's probably the more effective place to have action, because that's where the stupidity either starts or sometimes gets killed. And so if you can affect something in the House or affect the way that somebody in the House looks at it, then you might have a chance. And I've seen some changes happen because of what I've done over the past 15 years. But there's been a lot of them where it's like, nah, I'm not even going to try because the stupidity is already there.
Yeah. Well, I think that that about wraps it up for today. What do you
No. Predictions.
Predictions.
I loved Pete's prediction, though, about the turmoil, because it's not just here in the US, it's several different places in the world that are going to see this kind of political turmoil. And it has an effect on us here in the US. Most people just don't understand it, or they don't pay attention to it because they've already checked out. They don't consider the politics to have a real impact on them.
I think what we have to understand is that things are moving a lot faster than they used to.
Yes, indeed.
The Battle of New Orleans should never have happened because the treaty was signed like a couple of months earlier. Okay. And it just took that long for the message to reach Jackson in New Orleans that that the war's over.
Right.
Now wars are started and ended the same day, and we all know about it. I mean, it's just like the information, as well as various versions of information, come at us so quick, and the news cycle is so short that it's really, really a challenge just to stay ahead of it and try to figure out what's going on, what's really going on, how does it affect me? And I guess this is the big problem I have with, or challenge I have with AI, and to wrap that part back in, is that we're already having challenges keeping up with the information that's being forced down our throats, like we're geese being prepped for pate.
Here, have some more corn.
Yeah, have some more corn, and it's only going to get faster. And I don't think that people are in a position to cope with it.
Well, a fence now moves at the speed of light. So being offended now moves at the speed of light, and it's now repeatable.
Right. So,
one of the things that I would tell people about, big data and getting your hands around data is that the amount of data that gets transferred that's just replicated data is 2/3 of the total traffic. And so 2/3 of the total traffic is just repeated data. And we get the story repeated to us and repeated to us and repeated to us and repeated to us in all forms of media. Constantly. The constant barrage of the repeated media and the number of times that gets repeated. And the first time you hear it, you go, I don't believe that, but I'm too busy trying to research it to check it out. So I think that there's a lot of people that they don't believe anything in the mainstream media because I recognize this repeated training pattern going on.
Right. But then I think we have to think about what could I do something about? What things can I do something about? What things can I influence? And what things can I neither influence nor do something about? And those things I shouldn't care about.
Right. And
you know what I mean?
How do you do to filter those?
Yeah.
How do you filter that third group out?
Yeah, you just have to increase the squelch on, our personal squelches.
So there's technology tools that help. There's other stuff that helps along with that. I think that the rest of the gang here probably has a bright idea on that idea too, because I look at it that it's the ability to have the cognition of what's going on. And part of what we had talked about, in our last session that you didn't hit the record button on was can you artificially, can you replicate wisdom with artificial intelligence? Can you have artificial wisdom? And I don't think that you can, because you have to have the emotion of failure. I have failed and I don't want to fail again. And so, and being driven by what happens when you have a failure, that the real learning comes from failure. And I don't think AI is intelligence, but does it feel? And that's perhaps still the single, human aspect that's involved. I know that Donna and I had some conversation about that, but Pete might say something too.
I mean, it may not feel, but it can learn.
Yeah.
So you can teach it to learn what those feelings do and what reactions they cause. It can learn fear. It can learn failure, and it can learn the results from failure. I mean, there's people that buy up corporate entities, and they look at an entrepreneur and they want to know what other, like, is this your third or fourth entrepreneurial endeavor, and have you failed before? Because they want that experience. They don't want to pay for somebody that's going to fail now. They want to buy somebody else's time where the person failed once or twice before and now has all that experience. But machine learning can learn that.
Yeah.
All right.
I struggle. This is where I really start. So if you believe there's a hierarchy from data through information to knowledge and wisdom, there are some steps in there which should help us, right? And one of the difficulties we have, so let's take your failure example. We had a Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, right, who has failed significantly at every sodding thing he's done except winning an election. Okay. And if you think about that, his backers were backing him, irrespective of the fact that they already knew that he couldn't run a piss up in a brewery, that he couldn't do the executive thing. He wasn't capable of doing anything like that, but they still back him to the point of having him run a country to near destruction. So I actually think there are checks and balances. And I think there's a vast difference between all the information that we get now and knowledge and wisdom. And the fact people see it doesn't mean they read it, doesn't mean they understand it, and doesn't mean they know it. And there is, I think, somehow a way of getting past this dilemma. I just haven't worked it out yet. And that would be artificial wisdom. And I don't think we're close to that.
My big telltale with Boris was that he failed at finding a proper barber.
Well, that's the starting point.
That was the starting point.
I mean, your favorite guy paints his face orange, but that doesn't seem to matter.
I didn't say he was my favorite guy. I said he was my favorite guy to win if I was.
Well, so that means you're putting money on him.
Okay.
So,
yeah. I mean, I would put money on him.
Yeah, and I think I would too if I was a betting man.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah, but you're from Wales, right? You're Welsh, so you're not a betting man because you're.
But I don't know, because being a good Methodist, I'm not allowed to.
Well, I know you're probably trying to wrap up here, but I think there is some really good fodder for a potential future conversation around.
I think so. Yeah.
The speed of conversation, and there's so much. You can't read the internet in a day. That's not going to happen. Right. So, and how does AI work into these kind of things? Like, I really believe that AI came about because we started getting more and more advanced and larger and larger needs around data analysis and data crunching. So that's kind of what the origins were and why it was necessary. Now now the marketers got a hold of it. Now we're doing everything under the sun, but
a lot of that had to do with the increases in the capabilities of technology. I mean, back in 1987, I bought a 40 meg hard drive. I thought it was like the biggest thing in the world. I'd never fill it up. Right. And I thought that 4.77 megahertz was like a blazing fast clock speed on a CPU. And now, I mean, the amount of data that can be harvested, stored, acted upon, transmitted, is leagues beyond what it used to be just 10 years ago. And I think this is what is an accelerant of AI, is the technical improvements in the technical infrastructure in order to have it operate.
I agree, and I think there's an underpinning of the communication, the volume of communication, the underpinnings into some of the things that Mule said earlier on how people start to ignore things. Like, I have run into people that had no idea that Google and Yahoo were making changes in their email structure. And, that's something that's been like a best practice that's been talked about for eons, but now all of a sudden they're mandating. So for them, they've repeated themselves a million times over. But who gets caught in the clutch is exactly who Mule was talking about earlier. Those small to medium-sized businesses that aren't out there with their ear to the ground, that they don't have those large teams that are listening for the regulatory and compliance-oriented changes. They're caught flat-footed.
Yep. Well, the million or so farmers in Germany weren't caught flat-footed when they got in all their tractors and invaded Berlin last week. So I love farmers. Yeah. I love it, especially when they bring their manure spreaders and they have it spread on all the government buildings. I don't know. There's just some poetic justice there.
Talking of which, one of the, if you look at RPA before it and AI now, what you can be sure of is that a number of the very large companies will still manage to make shit faster.
Yeah,
absolutely.
To come back on the artificial wisdom, one of the issue is the data set. Because if you go over the internet, you will find one thing is opposite. Some people will say, that whatever person is the smartest person on earth. You can see that some people will, especially with politicians, will say that he's the stupid person on earth. And then it's impossible for a computer to differentiate. So one will have to curate, but then by curating, you will make decision. And then, the curator will be always biased in the same way like the monk were copying books and modifying a bit what they were writing. And then all of a sudden, the wisdom will be biased by whoever, decided that they will create something and do a selection. And the biggest issue, but our link to this is the business is at the end, one of the issues is that technology is exponential, as you explained very well with your drive. But us as human beings, we are linear people. The first thing is the number of people we meet is linear. You cannot meet exponentially people. Your salary tends to be linear, except in a few cases, but most people will have a linear salary. Our life are very linear, but the technology around us is exponential, and that's a dichotomy. And that's why we often, have difficulties to cope with technology.
Awesome. I agree 100% with that. All right. Well, you want to
wrap it up?
Yeah, we no doubt squandered a lot of time.
I know, and you're itching to discover that you did hit the record button.
That's
right?
I did, and I've kept my hands up here to not accidentally hit it again to take us off record. But I think this is going to be a long-standing joke throughout the rest of the eternity of the show. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, until you just embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there'll be a point where you pull a bigger boner than I did, and
and then I'll have to live with it too.
And then you have to live with it too.
I know. So I think the last thing is just don't forget to push the record button like my brother.
And don't drive like my brother. All right,
Thanks
everybody.
for coming, folks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
been listening to another episode of The Outliers Inn with your hosts, Joseph Paris and David Schneider. This program is produced by the Operational Excellence Society and sponsored by Zonatech Consulting Group International.
All right, so we could debrief this session, okay, and I could add it to like the beginning of the next session, you know, as the intro. Thing.
Well, this is kind of like the blooper reel, you know, because
this
JP forgot to record.
Hit the freaking record button. Could you imagine? I mean, you know, we went through a whole freaking hour of this of recording this session, and it wasn't until the very end where we're like signing off, and it's like, what the frig? The record button wasn't hit. So,
hey, you didn't use foul language. See,
yeah,
you see how that works?
See, unfrickin' believable, man. It's just like, honest to God, has anybody ever screwed up that much? I mean, like,
yeah, of course.
I could write.
Of course.
Of course.
I have a lot of scar tissue here.
All right.
You know, from where knowledge entered my head because I had to beat it against the wall enough times to go, I was that stupid.
Unfucking believable.
So there's it's Gary's human to really follow things up requires a computer quote.
Yeah.
All you.
I own this. This is me, man. I own this.
And you know, the worst is all those good discussion and all those predictions for November are not recorded, so no one will trust us anymore. That, you know, we're right.
That's right. I mean, we all put in our lot as to what was going to happen in November, and now it's going to have to be our little secret.
Yeah, it will have to be. Nobody will know.
The first session after November, then we'll have to, you know, call out who was right, you know, and who was wrong. All right, everybody. Listen, you have a great rest of the night.
Please don't drive like my brother.
And don't drive like my brother.
And don't forget not to hit the record button like Joe.
Right.
All right, gang. Take care. Chat soon.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.